We were going to start with Nebraska, but we'll start with Maryland. And Joel, why don't you start us off? MJ Morris and Billy Edwards Jr. are the two big ones. There is a third guy out there, but I'm not giving much credence to him just because there's not very much talk about him. Joel, who in your mind do you think is going to be the starter at Maryland between MJ Morris and Billy Edwards Jr.?
I just think whoever their offensive analyst Brian Ferentz think is the best fit is going to be the way to go for Maryland. So, and Brian, I trust, I believe that. And if you listen to our podcast, the 12 Saturdays podcast 2.0, I'm kind of a Brian homer. I was really happy to see him end up someplace that's solid. I don't know. I mean, is what I know about Maryland is, and Mike Locksley, quarterbacks going back to his time as, the OC at Illinois and the OC at Alabama played. His quarterbacks get hurt because he leaves them exposed a lot with nakeds and really scat protection with running backs. Like, you're going to see both these guys play. So I think you'll see MJ Morris to start. That's my gut. But whoever the starter is, game 1 is not going to be the starter game 5. And we may see number 3 by November.
Yeah, I tend to believe the same thing. I think MJ Morris kind of fits more of the quarterbacks that Mike Locksley has had in the past, not just Talia, but also some of the other ones, not just at Maryland, but also at Alabama when he was there as the offensive coordinator. So I think MJ will get the nod at the beginning, but I'm like you, Joel, with how he puts his quarterbacks out there and they get hurt. It would not surprise me at all if Billy Edwards Jr. gets a shot. And even if MJ Morris is only slightly hurt, Mike Locksley would probably have enough faith in Billy Edwards Jr. to throw him out there for a game or two. Zach, you tend to agree with us, or are you a different opinion?
No, I mean, I think MJ Morris is probably the guy I would tag to be QB1 and Billy Edwards QB2. I think what's concerning if you're a Maryland fan, like if you look at Billy Edwards, not a lot of play time, but like 10 of 30 for 128 yards last season. So it's a small sample size, but typically with small sample sizes, you expect it to be greater because it's, limited reps and, you're typically working against backups and it doesn't look good. He does possess a bit more of a run threat, but I like MJ Morris. I think he wins the job.
MJ Morris is still athletic enough that I think he offers that, but yeah, you're right. Billy Edwards more of a running threat. All right, Joel, your expertise here on your team. We got Caden McNamara, Brendan Sullivan. What's your take on Iowa?
This isn't a quarterback battle. It's Caden McNamara's team until it's not. That's the Kirk Ferentz way. I mean, this is the guy. I love Kirk, by the way. Like, I'm not here to speak ill. But like, this is the guy who left Brad Banks on the bench his first year because he just wasn't sure how much he could trust him. I mean, Cade McNamara can be trusted. We talked about Michigan and their run of success here. Well, that first Big Ten championship game they were in, Cade McNamara was their starting quarterback. So the guy has won. He's won in a big stage. And he's just got to stay healthy. That's the biggest question mark for us as Iowa fans. But this is Caden McNamara's team, but we were really, really excited when Brendan Sullivan came on board because if there's another truth, is that Caden McNamara is an injury-prone quarterback. So the cupboard was not where it needed to be as far as depth at the quarterback position, and to get a competent and confident Big Ten starting quarterback to make the transition to a real football stadium and not a makeshift stadium on the lake. Brendan Sullivan coming over and bringing a wide receiver with him. We're excited to see he'll get some playing time early.
Yeah, I think
okay, Ski Pod and Deacon Hill stuff. We don't need that.
I didn't even see it. Give Deacon Hill.
That guy is long gone. That guy's long gone. Thank heaven. I don't know if Division III or wherever the hell he ended up.
I don't know if I've ever seen the guys from Sky U Pod trash talk. This is I feel like new territory for them.
There's the only person who exhausts me more than Jim Harbaugh is PJ Fleck.
Hey, there for a while when they were talking about Jim Harbaugh leaving for the NFL, they were talking about PJ Fleck taking over for him at Michigan. So, maybe there's a little bit there, but nope, Sherrone Moore's the guy. No, Joel, I agree with
protege.
You. I think, yeah, the Jim Tressel protege. He's so much like Jim Tressel, the tight pants and everything. I think Cade McNamara, even if Tim Lester is vying for, Kirk Ferentz to start Brendan Sullivan, I think Kirk Ferentz is one of those guys where he's just going to remain loyal to his guy. And if Cade McNamara does get hurt, they feel good about Brendan Sullivan being there. And I agree with Joel. I like Kirk Ferentz. I don't see why people dislike him so much. I get that, maybe people would like to see him make the playoffs more and do some of that kind of stuff. But I mean, you kind of dealt with what you're dealt at Iowa. And that's not to say that Iowa's a bad program by any means, but he's remaining consistent. He hasn't been fired because he's never had a bad drought. And at the end of the day, like, what else do you want from a coach? Sure, maybe there's not the big time success there that maybe some fans yearn for, but more than anything, you just want to remain relevant each year. And, there was some, bad offensive years there, but he brought in Tim Lester and the offense has been good before in the past and the offense will be good again at some point, if not as early as this year. And we'll see if Cade McNamara can start that happening again. Zach, you agree, Cade?
Yeah, I think people forget how effective Cade was his freshman year at Michigan. And
wow.
Yeah, and Iowa's offense is going to be much improved this season. And that's, I think what McNamara needs is he needs structure around him. The line, all of them are starters coming back. Luke Lachey's coming back from injury. Caleb Brown's is a budding wide receiver for them. Sean Williams is a good running back for them.
He's suspended for week 1.
Is he? Oh, and then you got Caleb Johnson as well. I think the structure's in place for McNamara to be a good game manager, and he uses his legs well. I'll be honest. I think with Cade McNamara, I think they make the playoff this year.
Wow. The door is open. The door is open for a 12-team playoff. They could certainly do it.
Yep.
All right, let's keep moving right along here. Zach, we'll go back to you for Ohio State. You were the one that predicted in the offseason that Devin Brown could be the starter. Are you sticking with that prediction or have you pivoted?
So I'm borrowing my friend's NCAA 25 for a week because I'm too cheap to buy it myself. And I put in Julian Sayin as my starting quarterback. It's going to be Will Howard.
But on your video game, it's Julian Sayin.
Well, we could dynasty. You want to ride with the guy for 3 years.
Makes
but
sense.
It's going to be Will Howard.
I agree. I think it's going to be Will Howard. He came in. He has the experience. I think he was a little slow, at the beginning, but I mean, you're learning an entire new playbook. You're throwing 2 entirely new wide receivers. I think you're going to struggle a little bit at the beginning there, but I think, just they had interviews today and Will Howard is talking about how he ran 22 miles per hour. He's down to 230 pounds. I mean, this guy, he's transformed his body, and I think that he is bigger, faster, stronger, and I think that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly find that very attractive in their starting quarterback. Joel, you tend to agree, Will Howard?
Yeah, but no love for my college roommate's high school protege, Lincoln Kienholz. We were all hoping that maybe he would enter the portal and find his way closer to Pierce, South Dakota, and find his way back to Iowa City. It's probably Will Howard. Yeah, I just think Devin Brown shouldn't be allowed to play until he gets a different number. 33 for a quarterback is just dumb.
Hey, it's the homage to the very first
Sammy
Hall of Fame
Baugh
quarterback. Yeah. So, no,
Great. Run the wishbone then too, buddy. Jeez.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
I do really like Lincoln Kienholz, and I do remember the rumors this summer when
with Chip they might run the wishbone.
Iowa. Yeah. And that kind of stuff, but I'm glad Ohio State held on to Lincoln Kienholz. All right. I guess I'll go first with Michigan since I've had you guys go first in the last few ones. So this one is actually probably the most interesting one to me. was thinking it was Alex Orji for the longest time. And now I'm reading practice reports coming out that there are some Michigan reporters, not all, but a couple that I've read saying that Alex Orji is throwing an interception on 15% of his passes in practice, which to me is like, wow, that's more than 1 for every 10 passes you throw. Do I believe that? I don't know. I mean, Michigan does have a very good secondary, and Alex Orji is, his strength is more of his legs rather than his arm. That's not to say he has a bad arm, but his strength is definitely more of his legs than his arm. But I just look at it. I'm not buying the Jack Tuttle hype. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Sharon Moore is hyping him up as like he was behind Michael Penix Jr. and who was the other one that he was behind? JJ McCarthy. That's right. I don't know why I couldn't remember him.
Cam was he Cam behind? Was he Cam Rising at Utah too?
Yes, he was behind Cam Rising at Utah as well. So I'm not really buying that hype. I think Jack Tuttle is a good backup quarterback and, will probably know your offense well. And I think he probably serves in that role again this year. Even with the practice reports coming out, I'm going to pick Alex Orji. Joel, who are you picking here?
I just hope from a former play-by-play broadcaster standpoint, it is Alex Orji, just because there's so much fruit on the vine there from a call standpoint. There's all kinds of puns that his last name lends itself to. So it's going to be Orji. He's an athletic guy. I think Sharon Moore is going to implement more of the quarterback run game like they used him last year. He doesn't need to be an off the chain passer in that offense. If they can block, if they can run, I mean, the running backs he's got behind him, he can do a lot. And yeah, you're right. Jack Tuttle, like he was behind Michael Penix Jr. throwing 3 pick sixes against the Hawkeyes in week 1 of the season at Indiana, not Michael Penix, the Heisman Trophy runner up at Washington. So I've seen Jack play twice in person, and all I can say is if I'm got Michigan on my schedule, I hope that's the guy that's under center. Yep. If I'm a defense, I have to do a lot more work preparing for Alex Orji than I do preparing for Jack Tuttle.
Good point. Zach, you tend to agree, Alex Orji?
I'm going to dissent a little bit, but not because I think your points are wrong. I actually think your points are
say that.
Right.
You can think we're wrong.
No.
Here's trash us, Zach.
No. I'm not.
How terrible we are.
Zach. You're way too nice, Zach.
I'm not going to do that because I think your points are right. I think the problem is that it's going to be hard to trust Alex Orji to start because in practice he's looked as poor as he has, and I think they might fall into the trap of the Jack Tuttle experience. So I liken it, and JR, you'll appreciate this. And Joel, I don't know if I'm sure you'll know the reference, but it reminds me a little bit of Joe Bauserman and Braxton Miller, 2011. So like, we can't trust Braxton, so we're going to put Joe Bauserman out. And then Joe Bauserman plays a real opponent, and then he throws 20 yards in the stands like every other throw, cue the Joe Bauserman passing chart. I think that's going to happen against Texas, and then Alex Orji is going to get in because we're like, we can't let that happen again. So that's my.
So you think Jack Tuttle will start, but they're going to go with Alex Orji?
Yes.
Wow.
You saying the Jack Tuttle experience just made me think of Tuttle Hayes rolling in my brain. Just Jimi Hendrix joke there.
Yeah,
that's the stuff you get if you come to the 12 Saturdays podcast 2.0.
There you go. You get a little taste of the Iowa experience over the 12 Saturdays podcast. I love it. All right, last one, and I think this probably has the least amount of explanation. This is probably one of the easier ones on here, but Dylan Raiola, Heinrich Harburg, Nebraska. Raise your hand if you think Dylan Raiola will be the starter at Nebraska. Uh-oh.
Raise your hand if he's going to fail miserably.
Spoken like an Iowa Hawkeye man.
We'll see how it goes for him. I do question.
I tell you what,
go ahead, Joel.
This guy, this fan base, this program is so stuck in the 1991 Tommy Frazier 95 whatever. I'm undefeated against Tommy Frazier as a coach, by the way. He was the worst college football coach in the history at Doane College in Crete, Nebraska, an NAIA school. But this place thinks that this kid's going to come in and just be the absolute savior. And I just don't think I don't think they understand what else they lack as a program. Like, yeah, okay, he looks like Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously a legacy recruit. They snaked him out of Georgia and all this, and he's talented. Don't get me wrong. He's absolutely gifted. But just like I think, our guy in Chicago on pick, I'm totally drawing a blank because the USC kid, Caleb Williams. I watched Saban talk this week to Matt Eberflus about expectations are what are going to kill people. Expectations are what's going to kill this kid, because they're going to expect him, and he's going to be great that first game of the year. They're going to play some team that sucks, and he's going to throw for 450 yards, and Huskers are back, baby. But then they're going to get punched in the mouth. Their defense, the black shirts, are going to give up some big points against somebody they shouldn't give points to. And I'm not saying that my team that I support, the Iowa Hawkeyes, are going to beat Nebraska this year. That's not all I'm saying. I'm just saying the expectations for this kid are so high that he's going to have to win a Tim Tebow Heisman as a sophomore to meet the level of expectation that this fan base is already putting on this kid. And I think it's a recipe for disaster. And I think it's going to see potentially a Caleb Williams situation where he was behind Spencer Rattler, and they played him at Oklahoma, and then he transfers to USC. This kid's going to maybe be at Nebraska, have some solid ups and downs, and then they're going to find themselves that this guy's all of a sudden is the Texas quarterback in 2 years. After Arch Manning transfers to Ole Miss.
I would take a lot of those concerns and say, you know what? Maybe it is a backup. Maybe it is Heinrich Harburg that's going to be the starter instead of Dylan Raiola. But then I look at what Heinrich Harburg was last year. He was one of the reasons they had all the issues, the turnovers, the complete lack of ability to throw the ball last year. I mean, to me, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Joel. I do think that, like you said, he's going to have his ups and downs. He's probably going to do very well against the bad teams and, the group of 5 FCS. I don't even know if they play an FCS team this year, but the not so great teams they play on their schedule. But there will be at some point this season where he doesn't do so well. And you're going to look at the backup and say, oh, could he do better? No. He could not. Heinrich Harburg is not a good enough thrower, and you are going to take the lack of experience from Dylan Raiola, and even if the expectations are so high, like you're talking about, and I do think they are very high for him, it doesn't help that he's dressing like Patrick Mahomes and, playing dress up, looking like him as well. But even if those expectations are so high, I think you still 15. Know what you have behind him. What'd you say?
He's wearing number 15. That's the number he picked.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean,
we're going to learn a lot week 2. They play Colorado week 2, and so every camera in the world is going to be on the rekindling of that rivalry of Nebraska-Colorado, which is a real rivalry. And that's a night game. I mean, prime time is going to be talking. It's going to be Shedeur against Dominic Raiola. That's going to be all everyone talks about for a week leading up to that.
Zach, your thoughts?
I'll just counter with one. Because I agree. I think expectations are super high. Oh, am I frozen?
Say that again, Zach. You were frozen for a
second.
No, say that again.
I was just say I do I think expectations are too high, but you also have to remember last season they started the season with Jeff Sims. Like it can't get worse than that experience. And so like I do think Nebraska's probably got to come down a little bit, but the fact that you're comparing last year to this year, plus the schedule, the first 6 games are really cushy, right? Like it's UTEP. Like I know Colorado, there's going to be a lot of cameras on that game. If Jeff Sims doesn't stink for like the first 3 quarters of that game's a lot closer a year ago. I think the roster's upgraded. I expect a lot better in terms of record, but I do think that the expectations are a little too high for Dylan Raiola too. But I think he's going to do well for a true freshman.
Better than Heinrich Harburg.
Yes, easily.
I think that's the thing. As long as he does better,
I'm looking up what the gambling line is. I'm looking up what the gambling line is on that Northern Iowa Nebraska game. That's the week after the Colorado game. Northern Iowa will cover that point spread that week after that Colorado game because of the emotional drain after Colorado and the competence that Northern Iowa has as a football staff.
You heard it here first. Get your betting advice.
Take it to the bank, Nebraska, boys.
Northern Iowa game here on the Big Ten Huddle. I love it.